Alright, I'm back. I wanted to make a couple quick videos. This first one, a SimCity video, obviously, is going to be about wars. And I just wanted to touch on a couple thoughts that I had just because I'm playing again. First and foremost, when you do start a war, for anybody that doesn't know, there's almost always a very short time when it tries to match you up with your opponent that can last quite a few minutes, actually, depending on what time you actually start the war. If it's not a time when a lot of other clubs are active, I've seen it take up to 10 minutes before it actually matches you up. But if you accidentally click on the start war button, which I have seen people do and I have done myself, because in my opinion, when you come to the war page here, if it's right there in the center and you're trying to scroll down, it's way too easy to hit start war. So just a public service announcement for anybody that doesn't know, if you click start war, you can also immediately click cancel war if you did not mean to start that war. Just for anybody that didn't know, wanted to put it out there. Now, just real quick, something else I wanted to cover is when you are in a war. I'm going to get into detail about this, but to make it simple, the team that wins, the club that wins, is going to be the club that uses more energy more efficiently. And it's that efficiently part that really matters. Now, if you don't want all the detail, you can pretty much skip the rest of this video. This is not a high-end, never been seen before video. This is something for newer players. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about what I mean. If you don't want to hear it all, now's the time to stop. All right. When you start a war, there's a couple things that matter in my opinion. First of all, the number of players in a club matters. Mathematically speaking, the club with the fewer number of players has an advantage because they're going to have more targets for a longer period of time than the players that have the bigger club. So the next thing to take into account is your activity level. And when a war starts, the start of the war is quite possibly the most important time. If you can get an early lead, a lot of clubs have this as a strategy. They come on, they shoot out their jackpots, which, if you didn't know it, a jackpot is a battle booster that lets you get, at least the level 1 jackpot, lets you get double score. Let anybody that attacks the targeted city, because a jackpot goes on an enemy city, lets anybody that attacks it while that jackpot is active get double their score. Now, I've never seen a jackpot 2. I'm not sure what that does, but the jackpot 1 doubles the points you get from a disaster. So anyway, at the start of the club, at the start of the war, what a lot of clubs like to do is to be as active as possible and try to get a big lead, especially if they're a smaller club. And the reason for this is, if you can get a bigger lead, if you have more people that are more active at the very beginning, and you get that big lead, then when the other club comes on and shields everybody, puts everybody under the shield, on the smaller side, they have done more attacking and gotten more points. They still have the lead once they are shielded. And so in that regard, what they can do is remain shielded for the rest of the war and still win. Because, and this is another topic I want to touch on, I have heard people say that it's important to get board control. And in my humble opinion, board control is a myth. In this type of a game, in this particular war, board control doesn't exist. And why do I say that? Because Once you shield an enemy city, you have completely lost any control whatsoever on when they become a target again. So when you shield someone, you really want to know that is your intention, because you have removed them from being a target. You can no longer attack them until they determine they want to be attacked, which that's going to come up in a minute on something else I want to talk about. But I don't subscribe to the policy of hiding under a shield. I understand the tactic. It is, unfortunately, a smart tactic if you want to win, and the way the wars are designed, if you don't win and if you don't get the war currency, it really hurts you because you need to buy the battle boosters, most specifically the jackpots. It is also my humble opinion that the jackpot is really the only battle booster you ever need. Now, the energy boosts, no doubt, they're good. The vampires, it's nice to stop somebody on the other team from boosting their energy. And especially at the beginning of the war, if somebody throws up an energy pump 3 and you don't stop them, that could really be an advantage in their favor. But that all being said, it is still my opinion the jackpot is, without question, hands down, the battle booster to have. It is the best battle booster there is. So I'm not saying you shouldn't use other battle boosters. I'm just saying, given the choice, jackpot is always the one to have. Again, that's my opinion. All right, so we've touched on the whole concept of staying under the shield, which I do not agree with. However, I think we can all at least agree, even if we don't like the tactic, it is a smart tactic. It is a logical tactic. If you can get the win and you stay under the shield, you no longer use war items. It doesn't cost you anything else. You have the win, which is why I say board control is a myth. I don't quite understand what people say when they say, oh, we have board control when the opponent is shielded. Well, no. All you have is the opportunity to sit and stare at the screen, hoping that you catch them when they come out from under the shield, or you have the opportunity for them to come out from under the shield when you don't notice it, and they attack you when you aren't prepared. So in that regard, I do not believe board control exists. Now, there are multiple different concepts on the best strategy when playing, especially early in the war. And some people say, oh, we should find the best player. And let's look here. If I look at Trent City, what can I see? I can see that he's got a war rank of 16. If I click on his little energy bar there, it brings up a little bit more information. It lets me see he's the vice president, score. If he had a war log, it lets me see his level. If I click on the little eye in the top right corner, it lets me see all the information. And if anybody didn't know this, when you scroll down to the Club Wars section, it lets you see his favorite disaster, which I'm not really confident that's his favorite disaster. I don't know how they determine that criteria. But there also is the See All button. So if you can look at that, you can actually see every disaster and the level of it that this player has. And his comic hand is level 5, but I still not confident that makes it his favorite disaster. He may use it a lot. He hasn't unlocked the movie monster, dancing shoes, level 3 plant monster, level 4 magnetism, which is really nice, level 1 and a couple of his other disasters that I would consider good. Maybe he does use comic hand a lot, but still, based on the item usage, it seems like that would not be something he would constantly use. But Anyway, just showing you the different things. If you hadn't seen them, you can now scroll through the other players' list of disasters that they have. You can scroll through here and see this is a level ranked 23 player. Let's look at his disasters just for an example and get a comparison. See all. Now he has a level 7 magnetism. That's pretty scary. Level 7. And I unfortunately can't click on it to see how many points it would generate. I don't remember. I think I have level 6 and that's 485, so 50 more would be 485, 15 makes 500, 35, so 535 if my math is right. That's a lot of points for 2 energy. Alright, and then he has a level 7 plant monster, which also is pretty scary, and oh my, level 3 on the dancing shoes and the movie monster. I'm gonna guess this guy has spent cash to buy disaster cards, which of course is perfectly acceptable. I understand people want to win, and I understand that this is a game that allows you to purchase items. So if somebody wants to spend money, that's of course their option. I personally have spent money. I'm not doing so currently, but whatever makes people happy, this is all about people enjoying the game. So if they spend money, I personally don't think there's anything wrong with it. I am not a big fan of how blatant EA is about making the game a cash grab lately, but I see a lot of complaints about that on Facebook. I don't think I'm going to spend a lot of time complaining about that because I do believe most people feel the same way. Alright, so anyway, let's talk about energy efficiency, and when I do that, let's look at my disasters. Now, as you can see, I have a couple level 5 and the small ones. I do have the level 6 magnetism. It is 485 points, so level 7 would be 535, presuming my math was right. I do have the level 7 plant monster, and let's look at this. The attack phase has started, and I'm very curious because I want to see how quickly anybody attacks. And what is a good strategy when you first start? Do you want to attack immediately and right away, or do you want to watch and see if anybody gets attacked and counter? And that's questionable. I don't know what the best way is. I know that I've had a couple players in clubs that I've been in that are really fast on the defensive aspect, and that has made a world of difference. And if someone, for example, throws a jackpot on one of the cities in your club, and you can either dud it, which reduces the effect of the jackpot or counters the effect of the jackpot, or, in my opinion, even better, you can put up an umbrella which prevents them from attacking at all. That basically makes their jackpot a waste. So from a defensive standpoint, if you can eliminate the benefit that the opponent has gained from their battle booster, you are at an advantage. But I'm not sure if that's the best tactic. Attacking early on, like I said, and getting a lead is very advantageous. I'm not sure if these guys are just waiting and trying to see if we're going to do anything, or if they're busy at work, or maybe they're all just asleep, who knows. Anyway, the strategy that each club wants to implement is of course up to them. I think a combination of quick, hard offense combined with a couple people trying to be defensive is probably the best way to go. Our team is attacking. No, not yet. I'm sorry. That's a battle booster on the other side. They are boosting their energy. So somebody is there. My bad. I got excited. Saw something happening. That being said, I don't know what each club wants to do in regard to their own personal strategy, but I think a combination of offense and defense is probably your best bet. I do believe it's important early on to try to get a pretty big lead, if for no other reason than so you can prevent the opponent from hiding under the shield for the entire war. And you cannot get a lead if you do not have players that are active, most especially at the start of the war. And let's go back to energy efficiency. Now I'm going to look at my magnetism, and it does 3 damage, but it only requires 2 energy, and because of its level, I am currently generating 485 points. Now, there are multiple ways of looking at efficiency, but in my opinion, most times energy efficiency is going to be the key. So you can look at, well, how many war items does it use? So you can look at item efficiency, but that doesn't really generate you more points, especially right at the start of the war. Now, long term, over the course of the war, item efficiency can come into play, because if you run out of items and you can't attack later on when there's still more time to go in the war, then of course that counters out anything you may have done earlier on. But there's also point efficiency, and how many points can you generate per energy. And then there is, which of course is all about score. And then there's another type of efficiency, and off the top of my head I really forget what it is, but the energy efficiency I'm discussing is based on how many war points you get for the energy you use. Oh, and then there's also damage efficiency. So how much damage do you do based on energy? So for the most part, all of your disasters are 1 for 1 on damage for energy. There are a couple that suck and do less damage than the energy required, and then there's a couple that are better, like for example magnetism, that do more damage for the energy required. But sometimes, pretty rare occurrences, but sometimes doing more damage than the energy you use can actually cause you to score less points overall. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that, but let me just say, if there are fewer opponents and you want to make sure that you maximize the club score instead of your personal score. For example, if the opponent has, in this case, let's look at it, we have 12 energy that we start with, of course, but if we look at the opponent, we see that in this arena, and it varies per arena, the score, the health of each city is 13. So let's come back to our disasters. And if we bring somebody down to 2 health, for whatever, we've teamed up, a couple club members have decided they're going to attack a city, and they bring it down to 2 health. Well, now if you use a magnetism, you're going to shield that city, because it does 3 damage. Or even if you've brought them down to 3 health, using a magnetism shields them. So unless the opponent's city is at 4 health, magnetism may not be a good choice. You may actually want to use a weaker attack that does less damage, because you don't want to shield them yet. So you do a smaller attack, you bring them down to 1 health, for example, and then you hit with a 10 damage attack. And that's called overkill, because even though you'll only do 1 actual damage, because the opponent cannot take more damage than the health of their city, but if you do a bigger attack than the health they have left, you still get the points for that attack, even if you do less damage. It's called overkill. I can only do 1 damage, but I do a big, for example, 10-point attack. It does 10 damage. It only costs 8 energy, movie monster, but it does 10 damage. You're only actually going to destroy 1 remaining city, and then you're going to shield the opponent and not do any more damage, but you will still get the full 1,000 points, or whatever points your disaster generates if it is higher. And in that regard, a city can be worth easily 6,000 points with overkill and a jackpot. So when you're talking about points total for your club, it's really important strategically to determine how you're going to hit a city and how many points that's going to generate, and getting the jackpot up, and etc., etc. But if each individual person shields a city as opposed to using overkill, then your potential for total point gain is reduced. So at the start of the war, even during the entire course of the war, my personal belief, and a lot of players tell me I'm wrong, and maybe I am, but my personal belief is that the high-ranked cities, the ones that have the biggest attacks, most score-generating attacks, are the last people you want to target. And again, I'm not saying that's the best approach. That's my approach. That's my point of view, because I don't want to give somebody that is more active and able to generate more points an opportunity to get the cheapest possible war items. I do not want to hand them items and say, hey, look, I know you're really good at scoring points for your club, so here, have cheap items. No, I don't want to attack you. I want to attack the cities with low rank, with 0 score or lowest score first. That is my philosophy. Not all clubs subscribe to that. I do whatever the club that I'm in tells me to do. But from a personal standpoint, I try to target cities that are ranked high or high in score last. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, if you pinch and zoom, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but if you put your 2 fingers on the screen and then separate them, it zooms in. If you put your 2 fingers on the screen and bring them together, it zooms out. If you zoom in when you're on the war screen, just in case anybody didn't know this, you can see the score that those cities have. So for example, Trent City, Fort Worth have 0, Cornish Town 1800, etc., etc. Earth has 2270. But when you zoom back out, that goes away, so you can't see it. So just wanted to share that real quick in case anybody didn't know. Finally, again, back to energy efficiency. So my magnetism, let's look at it. For 2 energy, yes, I know it's 5 items, but in my opinion, you have to suck up and deal on the item cost in almost all cases. There are exceptions to every rule, but generally speaking, you can get more items all the time. You can do war deliveries, you can ask clubmates for help, you can go to the war store and purchase items if you have currency, but you cannot get more energy, with the exception of a battle booster, than time allows. And even with the battle booster, you can't get more than time allows. So energy use and efficiency is the most important. So let's look at this. Magnetism for 2 energy gives me 485 points. If I come down here to my next highest ranked disaster, which is Plant Monster, which is actually a higher level than my magnetism, for twice that energy, 4 energy, I can score 715 points. But if I did magnetism twice, which is then 4 energy, then magnetism 2 times, that would be 8, that would be 970 points, compared to 715. So from an energy efficiency point of view, magnetism, even though it's a lower level, beats out Plant Monster hands down. For 4 energy, I can either get 970 points for magnetism, or I can get 715 for Plant Monster. And if you are using a jackpot, the magnetism, 970 doubled, is 1940, if my math is right, whereas the Plant Monster doubled is 1430. So that's almost 500 points. That's pretty noticeable. So energy efficiency, again, is where it's at. Again, if you look, again, I know the level of the disaster matters. It's really important. But if you look at my movie monster, for 8 energy, which is double, I can get 1,000 points. But if I look at Plant Monster for 8 energy, that's 2 Plant Monsters, I can get 1430. So 1430 compared to 1 movie monster for 1,000. Just something that you want to be aware of. Energy efficiency does matter. On rare occasions, depending on the circumstance, then damage efficiency matters, or damage inefficiency might matter. And depending on your current item stock, then item efficiency might matter. But early on especially, it is my opinion that energy efficiency, generating the most score for the energy used, is your best possible option. So let's see if anybody is on here. And there is somebody on. We accidentally started war, which is why I started this video with the whole concept of canceling the war. Me personally, it's not always a good option, but I do like to wait until I have a full energy bar. Usually I try to come in at 11 energy just before it ticks over to 12. I like to team up with a club mate, decide who we're going to attack, and then as soon as it clicks over, I throw down the jackpot, use all 12 energy, and either I or my club mate that is teaming up with me will reduce them to 1, and then the other person will throw an overkill attack on, and we can generate huge score, 6,000-7,000, depending on what is used. For example, if I have the 12 energy and I use a Plant Monster 3 times, so that would bring them down 4 damage times 3 is 12. That would bring them down to 1 health. So 7 times 3 is 2145. If I double that personally, that lets me get 4290 from the city, 4,290 points just for 3 Plant Monsters with a jackpot. And then if my clubmate that's teaming up with me uses a 1,000-point attack, they get 2,000. That makes that city worth over 6,000 points to our club once it's shielded. Now, that's why overkill is a big thing. That's why jackpot is a big thing. If I used the magnetism, it would actually be more, but I don't want to do the math in my head, and I don't have a calculator handy, so I'm going to ignore figuring out how much that is. And that brings us to, in my opinion, the final thing I'm going to talk about with this video. It's probably getting pretty long. Let's see. Yes, I'm almost up to 30 minutes. The final topic I wanted to discuss, and I've actually forgotten what it is, so let's go to the war store here. Don't forget to always check your war store. I personally don't buy SimCash, but you can generate SimCash from winning the Contest of Mayors, and you can generate SimCash from winning in the wars, and you can then use that SimCash, even if you don't pay real cash, you do generate SimCash to buy disaster cards. I very rarely buy disaster cards. I think I've purchased maybe 30 total magnetism cards in the war store. I will not buy the yellow or the pink, the rare or the legendary cards, because I just think they're crazy overpriced and I refuse to do it. But I have purchased magnetism when I've been really close and I just can't seem to get any more chest rewards that generate what I need, so I just purchase them when they come up. As you can see, you can also get battle boosters here in the arena that I am in. They offer 4 battle boosters, and you can also purchase war items. Again, in this arena, they offer 4 items for sale in the war item selection. I believe it's always 4 items for the war items, but in some lower arenas, it's either 0 battle boosters or 2. I could be wrong on that. I apologize if I am. And I can't remember for the life of me what the final thing was that I wanted to touch on. Probably one of the reasons I should script my videos, but I don't. Energy efficiency is the key. Trying to be active early on when the war starts can allow you to prevent the opponent from shielding and then hiding under the shield, because if they get that early lead, that's a huge advantage, especially with that tactic of hiding under the shield, so you want to prevent them from doing that. There we go. There was the one final thing I wanted to touch on. I don't see a lot of clubs doing this, but in my opinion, okay, let's go back and talk about the score that you can generate from a city. A city is worth a certain amount of points, but of course, the war lasts, 36 hours after the 12-hour prep phase. So there's a long period of time that a city can be attacked, presuming that they repair and come out from under the shield whenever they get shielded. But I talk about what a city is worth, so I think it's also important to discuss a time frame. So when we're talking about what a city is worth, because as a club you really want to try to maximize the amount of points you get from each city on the opponent's team. And what is a city worth? Well, I just talked about how it can be easily worth over 6,000 points, depending on whether jackpots are used and the level of your disasters. But we need to figure out a time frame. So in my opinion, the time frame that matters is from when a city can first be attacked, and there are only 2 times that it can first be attacked. That is when a war starts, and any time thereafter, all the way up until it's shielded, of course. And then once a city gets shielded, the first time it can be attacked is once it repairs itself fully and comes out from under the shield. So the only 2 times a city can start to be attacked is either once the war has started or once they come out from under the shield. And what's the end frame for that time? Of course, it is once they become shielded. So a city has an attack period from when it can be attacked all the way up until when it's shielded. And then you lose the ability, and I've touched on this, but you lose the ability to determine when they're a target again once you shield them. So you really want to take that into account. And in my opinion, it's really smart, if you do get shielded, to repair all the way back up to 1 health remaining that's damaged. So if you're at 13 health or whatever and you get shielded, you repair 12 of those. And then once you build up your energy and you get full energy again, or 11 energy, about ready to take over, and you have the items to use. Now that's important, because if you come out with full energy but you don't have items to use, you can't attack. That's pointless. But once you have full energy, and once you have the items to use so that you can use all of your energy, repair, come out, attack. I think that's really important. I think repairing unnecessarily and coming out from under the shield just makes you a target, and it just gives the opponent the opportunity to get more points from you. And if you give away points but you don't generate points, you're going to lose. Generally speaking, your club will lose on the whole if people repair, become targets, generate less points than the opponent can get. I think that's pretty obvious, but I do think sometimes it's important to say the obvious things just so people think about them. So we have a time window to determine what a city is worth, which is from when they can start being attacked all the way up until when they're shielded. And we've discussed the negative of repairing without being able to generate points. So you shouldn't come out from under the shield unless you can actually generate a good amount of points. And if you generate less points than the opponent gets from your city, on the whole, if all players in your club do that, or even a large number of them, you're going to lose. So you want to take that strategy into account when you determine whether or not you should repair. Now, I do not subscribe to hiding under the shield, but I think there's a fine line to just saying, oh, I'm going to repair immediately no matter what, and saying, no, I'm going to wait and come out when it's strategically advantage to me. And then there's also the extreme where you say, oh, I'm not coming out anymore at all because we have the lead, so we're going to win. So it's a fine line, but I do think it's a pretty noticeable one. Now, we've determined how much points each city is worth. We've talked about repairing. The final thing I want to touch on is if a city is losing, if a club is losing, if as a club you have determined, okay, the other guys are just better than us, or they're more active than us, or they got more boosters than us, or whatever the case may be, and we are going to lose this war. At that point, and at that point only, I don't understand, if you know you're going to lose as a club, why every single city doesn't repair as quickly as they possibly can and as often as they possibly can, because that is the best possible way to generate war items. It's the cheapest possible way, it's the fastest possible way, it's the easiest way. If you know you are losing, repair immediately and repair often and get as many war items as you possibly can in the cheapest, fastest way possible. Again, just my opinion, something to think about. Don't make losing any worse than it has to be. Get the most you can from it. Anyway, I hope everybody does well in their games. I hope you all have a good day, and whatever you may be doing in the game, I hope it goes well. Thanks for watching. I hope I didn't bore everybody to death with my 40-minute video. Have a good day.